Alright, y'all, we're watching a middle art video about VPNs. Nothing too special, but let's get into it.
World was just one step in my journey. Hi, I'm Ronnie, and I teach people all over the world.
Hello, guys and gals. Me, Mudahar, and I have a simple question to ask you. Would you like to get wined and dined before you get fucked? You might be like, "Whoa, that's a
Oh,
pretty loaded question to ask me.
yeah.
Why wouldn't I enjoy a good meal before I get something stuck where the sun don't shine?" I'm just asking. I just want to know your opinion in the comment section below.
I'm not
Now,
gonna lie, I
obviously,
wasn't expecting
in
him
the
to say
last few
that.
weeks, my stance on internet censorship and internet freedoms and right to privacy, much like Louis Rossmann discusses the right to repair, much like Ross
Who is
from
that?
Accursed Farms discusses the Stop Killing Games movement and how
Who is
you
it?
should have
Oh,
access
yeah.
to what you
I know who
buy,
that is.
I have always championed and I've always
I think I talked about this before, that I said I wanted, like a collection of games to have, so, like, big companies don't essentially use and abuse you and throw you away like you're a whore.
always talked about your right to privacy. And I think the internet is the last big bastion of that place. So to start this off with really quickly, 3 weeks ago I made a video saying they want to ban VPNs. And I looked at, obviously, how the government of the UK was responding to people and them downloading VPNs to bypass their shitty
I heard
Online
that
Safety
too,
Act.
and I don't think they liked it. I think I heard that too. Somewhere, I think.
Now, hundreds of thousands of people have signed to get this act repealed, and the government basically said, lol, no, we're not going to fucking listen. It is what it
I'm not
is.
surprised.
Now, in that time frame, the United States has the Screen Act. You've got, Canada with, I believe, the Harms Act. You've got tons of big countries passing laws that are severely limiting people's access to social media services, internet services. They need to be providing actual identification to access the internet. So that anonymity, that free and unfettered access that existed since the internet basically began is coming very quickly, very rapidly to an end. So again, one of the reasons why I'm talking about this is I actually have a bit of documentation.
I guess my question is, like, how do we even get to this point to begin with? Because for me, at least, since I guess for me, it feels like it just kind of happened, but that's probably because I just started paying attention to it, and that's why it feels like it just happened. So I guess, like, where were the stepping stones to get to get to this point? All right. Yeah.
That I want to show you from the Children's Commissioner over here. Now, this is a little draft. And again, this is from, Dame Rachel de Souza. The report is amongst the most sobering my office has ever published. It paints a stark picture of what childhood looks like in 2025 with an online world that is in many ways completely unfit for children. Now, don't get me wrong, the internet's a filthy, filthy place. But the idea of locking things down is never the smart play. So obviously, people have been
And what child is just trying to look up porn? Like, I'm gonna, like, how does that even happen in the first place? Is my question. Because, well, maybe I can see it if it's like, this like old YouTube videos long ago where they had like Frozen and Spider-Man and everything, and how they are basically like grooming children. That's why YouTube like shut down the comments for kids because they realized like they're basically being groomed in the comments essentially. So in that sense, I can understand how maybe a kid can go from that to like straight up like watching horrific stuff. But at the same time, it's kind of like, how does that even happen? Because I know how easy it is on the internet to go straight to like watching Republican stuff. But I wonder how easy and accessible it is to see that stuff.
complaining to them about like the OSA, the government's like, well, no, we don't care, yada, yada, yada. So obviously in response to that, the amount of VPN usage in the UK jumped like over 1,000%. People were downloading free VPNs, some were getting paid VPNs, but
Paid
obviously the
VPNs? I never
government's
heard of
like,
that.
wait a minute, what's the point of this fucking law when people just know how to bypass it? To which now they're considering, whoa, maybe we should ban those VPNs. And I'm sure the VPN companies aren't happy. I'm sure the average citizen ain't happy. So let's read through this report a little bit more. So the act provides powers to limit children's access to pornography, but does little or
Okay.
nothing to...
Again, like, I understand that, but like, wouldn't the parent already have done that to begin with child restrictions on the phone? So I don't really understand that part of it this at the same time. Like, wouldn't that, I would assume that if you have a kid that you're, well, some parents are not responsible like at all, but like the ones that are at least aware of what's going on would restrict what their kid sees. I don't. Um,
alter the
I just
type
feel like
that is
adding
available.
that in is kind of
Currently, the
stupid.
problem is not just that kids can easily access this stuff, which, again, the problem is that the actual content is extreme and that there will always be ways around measures which limit access. Now, before we go into this, right, like they always say the acts that children are seeing in some of these videos are so extreme that they could not be legally published in offline formats like DVDs.
What kind
Now,
of
I don't know
stuff
what
are
kind
you
of
like?
borderline illegal shit
That's what I'm saying. Like, what kind of stuff these kids watching, bro? Like that.
she's watching. Okay, maybe it could be like fucking triple penetration gangbangs. Okay, it could be like ultra tsunami
Insane.
bukakis. But at the end of the day, I always find that censorship always leads people down to even bigger extremes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I heard also someone saying that like like, if you restrict people's rights to see things online, see certain things online, they'll use other websites that aren't as that aren't that are more dangerous, that they are more likely to spread viruses or hackings and all these other stuff that aren't good. You likely see more like horrific stuff on there. So yeah, that isn't great.
You know, if you go back to in like history to like Prohibition era America, there was a point in America where like alcohol was banned. So when you
Yep, and it
banned
did not work.
alcohol, suddenly gangsters came out of nowhere
They're
and they
like glug
started
glug
like
glug glug
bootlegging
glugging.
booze. Now, some of this booze was okay to drink. Some of it could turn your blood. But to go into it, right? Like obviously when you ban illegal content, right? It just here's the thing. Forcing like some of these adult websites to show ID is fine and dandy. But these laws don't ever stop in places where sites are operated, where they don't have to adhere to these laws. They can just keep sending out their websites and
I still feel like requiring that to even have an ID is so kind of stupid, honestly. Because again, if you don't want your kid seeing these things, then obviously I would assume that you put restrictions on that phone to begin with. You know what I'm saying? And even in the case that they do see it, I feel like the best thing for you to do is educate them. How does it make you feel watching this? Why are you watching it? How did you even get to this? You know what I'm saying? I feel like, girl, all we need is sex education. This is what it feels like. Yeah, we need to be educating the kids better.
people can still access them. And it's really these sites where like that regulation and that self-control on these websites starts to diminish. Now in the United States, when you upload videos onto these websites, typically you have to have some pretty strict record keeping, right? Like it's not always perfect, don't get me wrong, but sometimes, you know, when you're looking at these websites, generally every model you see is over the age of 18. They're generally consenting, even though there's been cases where they haven't. But if America, for instance, has issues with even keeping that, you know, functioning, even keeping that, you know, the up and up, imagine a country where these laws are never looked at. Imagine how many times you can go onto these websites and possibly see somebody that actually is isn't the age of 18. They might be under.
Mm-hmm.
You might actually be seeing something illegal on these websites.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing in these laws ever caters to stop that. So you can stop sites that are legally complying, but you're never going to stop the sites where really illegal stuff or that borderline illegal stuff where you're kind of like questioning, wait, is this allowed to be on the internet? It is. So what they say is the office is concerned that even with these rules, users will be able to circumvent restrictions through the use of VPNs. Within a day of the rules in place, VPN usage in the UK was platformed as an easy workaround. Yeah, obviously these boomers had to realize that, wait a minute, of course our laws are going to get bypassed. This is the perfect example of like a bunch of boomers creating a law and they have no fucking idea what they're talking about. You know what I mean? It's like their idea in their head was like, we're just going to ban all those adult websites.
Which is crazy because, like, why didn't they do better research before doing this? Thinking, like, why, like, you would think that they would make a better plan for all of this. That way there isn't a way around this. You know what I'm saying? There isn't a way around this situation.
Gonna get that stuff off of there. And then like somebody in the room was probably like, what about a VPN? And then like every boomer was like, what about a what? What about a what exactly? What are those words you just used there, Bobby? Doesn't make, what is an IP address? What are you pinging me? What is this? These people have no idea how the internet actually works. They had no idea that implementing these rules could have been circumvented with a VPN, which shows me that either the government is completely fucking inept and stupid, which is a very real possibility, okay? Or the ultimate goal.
Which wouldn't really surprise me because I know, like, some people, at least in the American government, there are some people who are kind of connected with the youth, or youth, or like younger adults who are kind of connected with them and know how to like talk to them in ways that is appealing, but also like I don't know, like you would think that they just would be smarter, but they're not because they're old. And usually old people tend to be stuck in their ways and they don't interact with newer things, newer ideas, I guess is what I'm saying.
For this is, and this is always what I've been saying, is it's most likely just a way to reduce the little bit of anonymity people have, you know? Before, you could go to public Wi-Fi networks, you could go to, you could not use an ISP that has you tagged, and you could access websites and access services. Now, if you're in the country, you need to provide a driver's license no matter what. So no matter who you are, a registry of your driver's license is attached to whatever website you're going to. And that is what the government ultimately wants. They want that easy,
control,
granular, you know, what is it? The warrant-free tracking on an individual. So they even talk about like where these kids are seeing like, you know, website like pornography for the first time.
Well, I'm not surprised. And why are children even on X to begin with, bro? That dedicated what does that even say? Snapchat? I don't use Snap, but well, yeah, from my experience, there are like sex bots, so search engine, yeah, that makes sense. Instagram. I mean, I haven't seen porn on Instagram. It's more like naked people, but they have clothes on, so in my eyes, I guess it's not really porn. TikTok, I've seen some like soft stuff. Reddit, I don't know. YouTube, yeah, there's some weird stuff. Video chat websites. When our children ever video chatting? WhatsApp. How do you even know about WhatsApp as a kid? Roblox. Yeah, that adds up because all like the weird groomer stuff. The fact that Roblox has like 3% is kind of funny, bro. Especially with everything that's going on.
Time, and like it's crazy. Like the first thing they see it on is like Twitter. 45% of the kids are like, yeah, We've seen our first dirty photo on Twitter.
Like what? Like how do
And
you
that's on the
even
App Store, by the way, too. Okay, so they're gonna complain about age verification, bro. This is an unage verifying app, literally on the App Store. Like, what are you on about, dude? And then, of course, you've got dedicated websites. Then Snapchat, which I don't even know people still use Snapchat. You got a search engine, so they're typing in big boob, and then Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, video chat.
but again, like I'm not really that surprised because kids are gonna be curious anyways, you know what I'm saying? Like of course they would look that up. The sex education system is horrible, you know what I'm saying? And if the parents are not going to educate them and unfortunately all they have is literally a search engine, is literally Google, is literally YouTube, that's where they're gonna get the majority of the information from, even if it's wrong, even if it's horrible, even if it is pretty atrocious. It just feels like it just stems back from educate your kids on sex education. Literally. Stop talking about abstinence and how it's good and all that, and just educate them. You can still, and maybe I don't, and still, you can still like lock their phone or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully that made sense.
Websites, which is very, very disturbing because who are they chatting with? WhatsApp, Discord, Facebook. I don't know.
Facebook.
Other social media site, iMessage somewhere else. And again, Roblox with that juicy 3%. Somehow I find it insane that Roblox is at a
Oh, it
higher
has.
percentage than even Twitch TV. And I don't know what kids had to be on to say prefer not to say, considering this was this was an anonymous ask.
At Wells Fargo, we get it. Carlos started his business to obsess over things like basting, butter basting, oil basting, egg wash basting.
So, at this point in time, obviously the government now is considering, whoa,
That Roblox didn't have more. That's what I was crazy. Like, that's what I was.
we have these laws passed. We're not
That did not
repealing
make
them.
sense.
It's time to get even more aggressive. It's time to rip away that next layer of privacy that you have. Now, a lot of people have been downloading free VPNs, which I don't recommend because, generally when you get a free VPN, anytime you get a free thing, you're the product. So when you get a free VPN service, remember you are basically consenting that a tunnel of your one-to-one network traffic is going between your computer, a free VPN service, and then the internet. So that free VPN service gets to effectively see what the fuck you're doing on your computer. Now, some of the most popular free VPN services like Proton VPN, I believe are pretty kosher when it comes to, I believe respecting user privacy. I haven't really read into their stuff as much. But when it comes to, something like a shady VPN, which there's tons of free options out there, these are where, a lot of kids who, if you're going to ask these people to crack down on VPNs or ask VPNs to age verify, some of these kids are still going to go to the free VPN services. They're still going to find these downloads somewhere. And again, it also makes you wonder how these laws will affect free VPNs. Like, will free VPNs still be required to down the road ask you for age verification, or are they just going to be completely removed? Because if kids start going to free VPNs and they start, having their information tracked by organizations that are outside the scope of law here, that is another scary rabbit hole you're sending people down. Forget the children for a minute. Imagine just any human being that is going to a free VPN service
Forget the
and
children. Fuck the kids.
possibly getting spied because the government has made it so difficult for some people, or so frictionful, that that's the path people are going down. Okay, that's the freaky part. And the other thing is, it makes me wonder how countries like the EU or the UK in this case will actually enforce things like Mulvad VPN. This is the VPN that I always recommend to my audience. Not because I get paid by them or anything. It's because it's the only VPN I've ever used where you can create an account number. You don't even have to give them your information. You can interact entirely with cryptocurrency. I have used Mulvad VPN, and I guarantee you they couldn't even identify me on their system because they have no idea. They're not identifying people. It's a pure privacy-focused VPN. One that was...
But can you technically track where like your cryptocurrency comes from? Or am I just crazy? Like, couldn't they track it that it was from you? But I guess like maybe that takes more effort. I Anyways,
even raided by authorities, and they found literally nothing. So I don't understand how they're going to go after stuff like this. I don't even understand how they're going to stop VPNs. VPNs are such an important part of cybersecurity. They're such an important part of how the internet is used at a level where people need privacy and interconnectivity between each other. That's the one thing that I actually wonder how they're going to do. You don't really need VPN services. Obviously, I've taught individuals about what Tor is. Tor is how
what's
you
that?
browse the dark web, right? It's how
Oh
you
yeah.
browse
Oh wait,
that part
I
of the
think you
internet
talked
that's
about
a
this
little
before.
too dank for regular viewing. You know, if you watched me, you probably saw me do this every Sunday. You know, you watched me browse the dark web. And there is one video coming this Sunday as well where I'm browsing the dark web. So I'm going to show you, again, it's really simple to get going. Let's imagine that you have a Windows system, so let's fire one up really quickly in a VM. So assuming that most of my audience is from, again, the Windows side of the world, not that there's any shame in that, but you should consider switching to the Penguin if you can. Go to Tor browser, okay, I'm actually just using Bing search here, you don't really need to worry too much. Download the actual browser here, so just download for Windows or Mac or Linux. Or Android if you really want to. I think they even have an iOS version, but you have to like do something fucky with like VPNs on your phone to access the dark web. It can never really be completely simple with an iPhone, okay? It's still the Fisher Price of smartphones. But once it's downloaded, all you got to do is open that file. It'll go.
Yeah, I did hear like it's a lot easier to like customize customize everything on Android phones or whatever. For iPhones, it's a bit harder. I'm not sure
through
why
an
though.
entire setup procedure where you say yes, install to whatever directory you want, preferably the default, works just fine. And of course, here it is, a general install. It's like installing a web browser, okay? That's as simple as it is. Now, of course, after all of this is done, you can basically access the Tor network and you can browse not just dark web websites, but you can actually access the internet as a whole. So when you start up the Tor browser for the first time, it's like, hey, connect to Tor. You can just do always connect automatically and just hit that big purple connect. And boom, you'll see this little bar travel across the top of your screen and you're connecting to the Tor network.
Honestly, I feel like I'd be like kind of afraid to enter the dark web, bro, because I know there's some like wicked stuff there, bro. Like crazy, nah. Like I feel like I'd rather be, a regular civilian, just kind of like, hitting the surface, not going in too deep, not really trying to, not really trying to traumatize myself like that, bro.
Run by thousands of volunteers around the world. So let's say that governments do ban VPNs. This will always be an option where you can just go and browse the internet. So you can access like Onion websites over here too. So for instance, underneath the old dark web browser, if I ask what's my IP, it will actually just say, well, first off, it's telling me to consent to something. Sure, 100%. Consent on my Tor browser. It'll say that I'm connected via Amsterdam. Obviously, I am not in Amsterdam.
Hopefully it's
You'll
nothing
have to take
bad.
my word for it. But that's just how this stuff kind of works. And of course, it's not just accessing a regular website like whatismyip.com, but it's also accessing parts of the internet like Dread, which are entire
What's Dread?
Reddit-like communities where you can access free information. You can access a community of people
Like kind of like wiki
that
or
speak
with like
without the
speech.
internet censorship and internet control that governments want to impose to people, right? And literally, it's
That's
just that
interesting.
easy.
It's like,
Now, before I go on this point, obviously, if you can
what's
donate
it
to
called?
Tor, whether it be with crypto or online, I think even $5 for these guys is enough for them, okay? Like, literally, it's just, they will accept any donation because ultimately every dollar helps keep this network up and running. And I imagine coming into the future, when these laws and VPN bans start getting passed, that VPN usage will grow pretty astronomically. Now, of course, to kind of end this off on, ladies and gentlemen, I really feel like
Seems like someone has a new business, bro. You better start that shit, bro.
this is the next stage of what's happening. So this is going to
This
get a
is
little bit
idea.
personal, okay? If you ever grew up past, some of you guys might be too young for this. You may not even have been alive for it. But back when I was a kid, a major event in the world happened.
Which was
That event will happen on September 11th, 2001. We call it 9/11.
yeah.
And 9/11 was when a group of terrorists had flown a plane into the World Trade Centers. And then, of course, the Pentagon, and one actually missed its target. But I believe I think it was like the White House. But yeah, this was a massive terrorist attack that basically shook the world.
Chevy is called the heartbeat of America, like the people who keep Texas moving. For them, only America's most dependable
Now, I'm not going to get into the history and specifics of just 9/11. Just know that it was a very, very traumatic point for the entire world, right? Like it left the entire world's jaw dropped. Well, in October 2001, after 9/11, just very shortly after, the United States passed something known as the Patriot Act, which expanded the amount of surveillance that the United States government had. And they had said that this was supposed to be to fight terrorism, to keep you, the people, safe. Similar to how
Mm,
all the
and now they're taking advantage of it to basically watch you every single second of every single day. I mean, they already did that, but now they're like getting like honing in, um, honing in on it.
VPN bans and like these internet bans are being like thrown around as a way to protect children. It's never that simple, okay? If the government wanted to protect you, they absolutely can. I mean, we're talking about the United States of America. But what happened over here was they had basically expanded so much of their surveillance apparatus overnight under the guise of national security that if you compared it to like, something back then, it almost felt like the most fascistic thing since what, like Nazi Germany even. So for instance, there would be things like Section 215 where like, the FBI or the National Security Agency through the FBI could absolutely demand anything tangible when it came to businesses, when it came to banks, internet providers, if it
Hmm.
was relevant to investigations. And of course, that was interpreted so broadly that you could lead to bulk collection of just mass amounts of metadata for every American, not even just suspects. Remember, before things like the Patriot Act, surveillance was a thing in the United States. But the thing about surveillance was there was a lot of legal hurdles. There was very strict oversight compared to what the Patriot Act had given in terms of broad usability. So obviously the FBI could investigate anybody they wanted to, but they had to go through court orders, warrants, all this extra shit. America is a framework of probably one of the most perfect countries in my opinion when it works. Checks and balances.
Perfect country. Now you lost me, sir. You lost me with that. Not gonna lie. When it work, like when this is that when it works, when it's perfect. When has America ever worked perfectly? I don't think that ever has happened once. I mean, sure, the bad people get locked up, but even then, oh, Jesus, I just feel like there's too many like. I feel like we can't really say that it's perfect because it was built on crap and lies, bullshit and lies. So that seems kind of a bit too patriotic, a little bit too, red, white, and blue for me.
The ability to have institutions as strong as the FBI and the NSA, and the ability to restrict their amount of surveillance on their own people is something that takes a lot of political genius, a lot of technical genius, a lot of genius in general to really map out and framework. And overnight, after 9/11, it really felt like that level of check and balancing got thrown out overnight. Before things like the Patriot Act, right? Any investigator would have to show probable cause to get approval for things like surveillance. But again, with the Patriot Act, what did it matter? Relevance was just a fleeting thing. They could just gain larger data sets for people that they would consider to be suspects of things like terrorism. And then, of course, obviously when it came to wiretapping the individual, the ability to wiretap and gather data became so massive overnight that it led into other programs like Prism, right, which was exposed by Edward Snowden as a way for
Who?
a lot of these like government organizations to have backdoor access into the big tech companies and be able to examine every single thing that we do.
Oh
Look,
wait,
before I end this,
is that that guy who like exposed that like the government is watching everyone, and he had to like go to Russia to escape them or something? Was it Russia? I think it was Russia to escape everyone, and Putin it like accepted him into the country or whatever. And if he ever comes back to the US, he'll like be locked up. Is that him? The fact that I know that.
Video off, you know, there's always this weird like view of somebody that has the tinfoil hat on, right? Like, you know, Alex Jones is just some crazy conspiracy theorist. And in some cases, yeah, there's a lot of crazy conspiracies out there that people can delegitimize, but there's one conspiracy that cannot be delegitimized. It is mass surveillance, and it is the restriction of our privacy. Look, I am not a fan of some of the most raunchy shit on the internet, okay? There's a lot of racism, there's a lot of fucked up stuff that gets thrown out on the internet. And some can consider like how much of it is real, how much of it are bots. But I will say something, anonymity at least brings out the truth
I
in
mean,
humanity.
it doesn't matter if it's not real or if it's bots, because at the end of the day, it's still out there and it will be interpreted by real human beings that will align with what the bots or fake situations is putting out there. So it doesn't really matter if it's real or fake, you know? Like, the intention does not matter. What people get from it does.
It brings out the true person. And as fucking weird as it is, right? Like, as much as speech can sometimes disturb me on the internet, I think principally it is better to have that freedom of speech to weed out the thoughts of a real human being, to weed out real human action, than having a world where the government surveils us for everything that we do, puts us into fear and ultimately digital captivity, so that people act all ordered and functional on the internet. I think ultimately that's the end goal for this, right? It's to control every single thing that we do on
That's
the
what I
internet.
said.
And look,
For control.
VPNs being banned, it's just a reaction. It just shows me that these organizations don't really have a lot of thought put into it. They're not really thinking logically about how to tackle these situations. Are kids watching adult pornography bad? Yeah, absolutely. Nobody should be watching it, at least in my opinion, because of how much of an impact it can have on your brain. But again, when you're an adult,
I mean, I feel like I have like a different like a vibe with that, because it's kind of like, again, sex education is down the toilet, and people will watch things to either experience things that they're too afraid to experience in real life. Basically, being like not um not by curious. What's the other word? By I forgot the word, but basically living through what they see, right? So if they remove porn, will they remove smut as well? Will they do all? Will they do take away photography and everything, like art, for example? Like it's like if you take down one thing, then all these other stuff is going to be taken down as well. And by the end of it, what will we have left? You know what I'm saying? So it's like a slippery slope to go down, and I rather, I rather the black and orange website be up. Restricted. I I can understand the restrictions, but at the end of the day, if your kid is watching that, then you need to do something about it, right? You need to either not give them a phone or put restrictions on the phone. Obviously, there's going to be ways around the phone, but again, kids are kind of dumb, especially when they're like really young. They're kind of dumb. They're not going to really find out how to do that unless they actually put in the effort.
what you want. When you're a kid, obviously I don't want you looking at some of that stuff. It's probably very damaging to you. It actually is very damaging. But I think the government doesn't really care about these kids. They just care about invoking a new framework that makes the Patriot Act look like nothing. They want to have a way where every single person on the internet is monitored. There is absolutely zero anonymity. And because there is zero anonymity, people fall into line online as they're forced to do in reality. You know, I don't want to be in a world where every single thought is monitored and every single pattern of speech is controlled. That is living in like a prison itself, you know? I think there's one state, I think it's like what, New Hampshire or something, live free or die. That starts to ring with me more and more. But anyways, I'm going to be looping here. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just
I'm not gonna lie, that kind of reminds me of that guy who had like not a brain implant, but like I think a brain chip that he got from Tesla. Was it Tesla? Was it Elon Musk or something that put like a chip in his brain and or spine or something, and he could like he was able to like do able to move things or something with his eyes or whatever, and it gave him like kind of more not individuality but more independence in that way. And I wonder if like it just kind of reminded me like I wonder if somehow some way they'll even be able to read thoughts, which seems kind of like stupid but also like interesting to think about. But anyways, I will see you on in the next video.